Hello and welcome back to our show. In the next few weeks, not few months like we always say it before, we are going to have few other candidates to talk to you about the election, about their campaign. And today I am honored to have Peter with me. And he is running for the 176th district. And without further ado, I will introduce Peter to you all. Hi, Peter, and thank you for giving us the time. And can you introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
Yeah, thank you so much, Hagir. It's really an honor to be here, and thank you for doing the show. Thank you for bringing a message of real sort of moral clarity to the United States, and the commitment that you have to individual rights. It's really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name is Peter Buck. I am from Central Pennsylvania. I have lived in Central Pennsylvania for most of my life. And over the course of my time here, I went from being maybe a rebellious and petulant kid, someone who kind of came to service in his 20s, primarily through environmental and community and like race and gender issues. And in 2015, I moved back to State College, Pennsylvania. I live right outside of State College.
Okay.
And ran for the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors because of a land use decision. And that happened because for the previous decade, people had come to me again and again and said, Peter, we need help doing this thing or that thing. We want to pass a community and environmental bill of rights by referendum. Will you help us? Yes, of course I will. We want to take on the fracking industry. Will you help us? Yes, 100%. Will you help, save this woodlot? Yes, of course I will. We need help for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. Will you help? Of course I will.
Mhm.
So when the Ferguson Township seat opened up, I ran and found that I really enjoyed working on behalf of people in local government. And so in that time, I worked on the Spring Creek Watershed Commission and went on to chair now an intergovernmental solar power working group, a regional climate action and adaptation planning group, and the president-elect of a statewide higher ed organization. And so when I looked at 2020 and what was on the ballot for me and my vote in the 171st district, serving parts of Center and Mifflin counties, the person in that seat, Carrie Benninghoff, was a 12-term incumbent in a fairly gerrymandered district. And I thought there is no way that this man can go unopposed.
Mhm.
Through all of the service that I'd done, all my work at Penn State University, I thought and thoroughly believe that if anyone in the 171st district can beat Carrie Benninghoff, it is me. He is an architect of every problem Pennsylvania has that is local and global. He has received $70,000 in campaign contributions over the last several years from the fracking industry. And he cannot jump high or far or fast enough to do whatever they want for him. We have a horrendously unequal system of haves and have-nots in public education because he will not fairly fund schools, despite, as majority leader, telling superintendents and school boards that he does. He won't open the charter school law. He won't do it and hold a system accountable. And look, charter schools can be just fine, but you have to hold the system accountable. You're public or you're not. And we have, according to the Auditor General, the worst charter school law in the country, and Kerry will not do anything. And most recently, with this House Resolution 1032, the so-called Election Integrity Committee, he and his buddies in the GOP We're going to attack the election. And he's going to pull that resolution, by the way, because my campaign and the people of central Pennsylvania and people from across Pennsylvania said no. And so what kind of a leader is this? No, I want to bring my experience, my passion, my focus to work for the people of central Pennsylvania and work for them.
And thank you for that, doing that. And like I said earlier, there are so many amazing people, and you personally give me hope. There's a little bit of background, but reading, just going on your website and reading about your campaign and your message, it is so refreshing to have someone who is in education. He's an educator and he's a fighter, and someone who's been serving, who's been a public servant to his district and his community, and to have all this experience. It makes me feel safe. I don't know if that sounds cheesy to everyone listening to us right now, but that's how I feel talking to Peter and to our candidate that running this year. Let's talk a little bit about your background. I know you briefly said you taught, and what is relevant with your background to what you're doing now?
So I am a third generation teacher.
Mhm.
My grandmother was, I believe this is correct. This is the family legend, is that she's one of the first women to have graduated from Stanford University's graduate program in teaching. And this is, gosh, this would be like 80 years ago or something, maybe 70. And my father was a teacher. He taught at Penn State University in the English department. And then on my mother's side, my grandfather was a math teacher and a farmer.
Mhm.
And my mother was a teacher also at Penn State. And then I earned 2 degrees from Penn State, actually in music, and went on to teach at Penn State Altoona and Penn State University Park. And then I thought, maybe what I actually want to do, maybe I want to be a social studies teacher. Let's develop the citizenry of our country, because if you look at the civic participation, I mean, like you just look at raw voting numbers in the United States compared to a nation like Australia, and you go, wow, people are really disaffected and disenfranchised. And part of that is because they don't know how to engage in the political process with a small p. How do we work through difference? How do we talk? How do we vote? How do we access government? How do we get government to work for us without just raw economic power and dark money, Yeah. So how do we do that? I was really interested in fostering that. So I thought I'll become a social studies teacher. That was 14 years ago. And I started a program in education once again at Penn State. And then I met my the woman who would become my advisor for my PhD. So I do have a PhD in educational theory and policy. But as I finished my PhD, I went on to work at a boys' boarding school. Taught 11th and 12th graders, and lived with 35 to 45, 18 to 18, 19-year-old boys, which is an experience I can tell you about. All this is to say, then, that education is hugely important to me, and fostering good relationships with young people, doing your best to set a good example for them regarding the seriousness with which we take our role in civic life, developing our talents and realizing that people's talents are very different, and that working with them to foster them is hugely important. I also work at Penn State Sustainability Institute. So every day that I go to work, I'm paying attention to both the local, the state level, the national, and global issues, things like climate change, paying attention to, in some degree, to the impact of artificial intelligence on our daily lives, thinking about clean air, clean water, urban development, rural health, huge issues that are all that is in Pennsylvania. They are so live.
Yeah.
And so in my district is around Penn State University.
Mhm.
And there's a sort of suburbia and then a kind of high tech industry here and a very kind of urban, peri-urban, suburban economy. And then you leave that and it is, very traditional rural Pennsylvania where we have farms, we have, gunsmithing shops, flower shops, traditional local like meat processing plants or feed mills. There's a dynamic, and this district is a lot like this state. And so balancing or saying, okay, how do we work through these differences, I think is really imperative for a representative like I will be and for the state itself. And in my view, the legislature over the last, at least decade has done a bad job of working on rural infrastructure and rural health. And then some of the rural reps and the gerrymandered Republican majority snubbing its nose at Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and Harrisburg, where you have intense urban issues, certainly racial inequality issues, and infrastructural issues. And just because of this sort of now just blanket hatred of, talking about any sort of tax reform that would increase funding for, these infrastructure investments, we're just perpetuating problems that is making Pennsylvania and Pennsylvanians lose. So, education, environment, and government service, I think, really come to the fore from what I've done, and will translate immediately into work in state government very well.
And that's just the understanding that you have for your area, the issues that matters to the district. Should not just mean something, but it should give people a chance. You're giving them a chance to go and look at the real issues that we don't discuss, we don't talk about it. And it is not part of it, it could be ignorant. Part of it is, like you said earlier, if you don't face and feel the problem happening to you personally, it doesn't exist. And that's how people view systemic racism, how they discuss issues like the issues that matter to you might not matter to me here in Pittsburgh because uh, I don't know it.
Right.
But talking about it, it will give me a chance to learn and try to help. And that's all we're asking from all of our listeners, everyone out there. We just want you to understand, really. And you don't have to act on a problem just because it's affecting you personally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, the development of perspective, which is I think one of the things that you clearly do and are very committed to on your show, is how do we develop perspective so that people in different places don't feel what the academics call social distance.
Yes.
And I don't mean that in the 6 feet away from someone, but that just because you don't live near me, I can't understand you.
Yeah.
One of the things that storytelling and consistent sharing in an open way can do is develop empathy and compassion. And that's what we need right now. We need to develop empathy and compassion. J.K. Rowling,
Yeah.
who, the author of the Harry Potter books,
Mhm.
gave this marvelous commencement speech at Harvard 10 or 12 years ago. And in that speech, she said, really, at the end of the day, the thing that fiction does best is help you develop empathy.
Yeah.
Because you have to be in another character's position, whether it's Harry Potter or Cho Chang or You know, you get to do that. And when you are in that world, that's great. The best part of politics is when we do that. And so part of what I try to do, let's take police reform
Okay.
as an example. Because I think that for, you know, people who are, you know, sort of isolated, you know, rural folks, right, who don't have black or brown neighbors,
Yeah.
right? They're like, why are, you know, and this is not a blanket statement. This is for some of them, and you know, who I get to talk to from time to time. It's like, oh, that's a problem over there. It's not a problem here. So what I can say is, look, let's say that you get pulled over for having a busted taillight on your way from Spring Mills to Woodward.
Mhm.
Do you want to have the peace of mind that the cop who has pulled you over isn't a bad cop from another place?
Yeah.
Is seriously disincentivized from using lethal force if, you know, you were to move in a way that prompted them to think like he's going to shoot me or something like that? Do you want a law like Carriel's law, which was just passed by the Buffalo City Council, that enables a whistleblower in a police force to report wrong behavior, particularly where force is involved? You know, like, so you should be able to trust and verify. Everyone should be able to trust and verify. And clearly, violence by police officers is meted out on people of color and overwhelmingly disproportionately on black men. What is it? 2.5 times, you know, the rate
Yeah.
of police, you know, use of lethal force, right, compared to their white counter, you know, to white men. Well, don't we all want that protection? Of course we do. Of course we do.
And just that note, what we always try to repeat on the show, that we're not asking anyone to be on anybody's shoes, and we're not wishing a death or an action on anyone. We want them to be understanding. If someone step on your toe and you said, ouch, his reaction is not supposed to be, that didn't hurt. It's supposed to be, how did I hurt you? How can I help? And that's what we want from people. We want you to try to understand what everyone else is going through. You don't per se have to live through this. When I get stopped by the cops, my thought will be, I'm not going to survive. My 19 years old drive a car, and I feel like my heart is heavy until he comes back home. And no one's supposed to feel like that. And I don't wish this on any parent, but it is happening. And for us to ignore it, that doesn't make it go away. So discussing those issues that are uncomfortable to us is the aim. Concerns me and to you as well. And talking about police reform, it fits perfectly with you, racial and systemic injustice. You have an area here where you talk about fair, equal, and justice for all in your website, and more about that, and let us know what are you thinking when you said that.
Yeah. Well, so when I was in 11th grade, I was in social studies class,
Mhm.
and we were watching a film about hate groups in the United States. And I grew up in a house. My father was at the University of California at Berkeley during the late 60s and saw firsthand the sort of the civil rights movement from Berkeley, California. So I'd grown up in a family that was, very attuned to civil rights advocacy. But I lived in central Pennsylvania, and like extraordinarily white part of the world, which is that's not a value judgment. That's just a sort of demographic fact.
Yeah.
But so when I was in 11th grade, we were watching this video, and on the screen there's footage from the Greensboro Massacre in 1979, where three black striking black textile workers and a white supporter were shot and killed in public by the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
And my friend, one of my best friends, and my senior prom date to be, jumped up, started crying, and ran out of the room. And my friend Jessica and I ran after her, and she said, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, that was my dad. I just saw my dad." Her father was Dr. Nathan, who was killed in the Greensboro Massacre. And so, that's not my family, but she was one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And her father was killed by the Ku Klux Klan. And, her mother was so strong. And they ended up adopting 2 Kenyan children later. And I just have to say that her family's commitment and what they had to work through as a family because of hatred has, obviously, I mean, I still I'm almost crying when I talk about it, because I just imagine what it would be like to lose your father before you know your father.
Yeah.
Because of pure, unadulterated hatred.
Yeah.
And so, in 2001, I was one of the students who camped out at Penn State's Hetzel Union Building when then Black Caucus President Lakeisha Wolf had received death threats and was harassed. I have 2 students of color and actually the president of today's Penn State Black Caucus working on an environmental justice cumulative health mapping project. Just very important to me personally. And it's because I know through the privileges that I've had in life, living where I have with very educated parents in a very safe part of the world, that I can't just be thoughts and prayers and I can't be one of those people who Dr. King called the most frustrating person in the world, the white moderate. And I'm not saying I'm some kind of radical, but I do recognize that through whatever gifts I have and whatever privilege I have in my positions in life, that I have to use them to uplift other people. And that means working for, my Black brothers and sisters. My Reverend Carol Sissel, who's African American, said to me, Peter, it is exhausting to live in a country that tells you over and over again that you don't matter.
Yeah.
And I hear that from, basically all of my Black friends and colleagues.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. So I don't know. It doesn't matter at the sort of end of the day, if I do enough.
Yeah.
That's not what the question is. The question is, am I in the boat and rowing?
Yeah.
And I certainly hope that I am. And
you are. I can tell you are. And before I say that, it is so sad that we are discussing the same issues that we discussed many years ago, and you had the experience in 2001, which made you relate to others, relate to so many people that I personally know who were their grandparents were slaves and who were shot or lynched or, you know, that's many years ago. And we are still facing this. So I really want to know how is your friend and you feel about uh, those hate groups surfacing, having leaders, not just Donald Trump, but even Republican representatives who think it's okay. They not condemning any proud boys or white supremacists or KKK, and they talk about them as fine, good people.
Yeah. Well, right now they are not fine people.
Couple minutes, and then we will move to other issues. I
Yeah.
know you have a lot to cover.
This is
Your campaign is amazing.
because I think it's important not only for me to just respond to the question, but it's also important that that people like Representative Bullock or Representative Summer Lee, right? They know that there is a white man running in the middle of Pennsylvania who wants to make common cause between people who are pushed down by a corporatized, exploitive economic system that plays Black Americans against rural white Americans. And that's, so we need to build bridges, right? So then with, these hate groups and whatnot, right now they are not fine people, but that doesn't mean that they can't be. And there are people who, you can read about them. They start organizations to get people out of hate groups, and so that they can become less resentful people who feel included in something that is good for them instead of included in something that is based on violence and resentment. Their hatred comes from a profound disconnection with a community based in trust and good. And so it is incumbent on people to build community that is for good. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to get along or anything like that. Obviously not. Clearly that is not the case. But when we have these kinds of eruptions and investments in ideologies that are about separation and violence, they come about because we are failing to create a culture where neighbors love one another. And so, as I mean this in no cheesy way, we have to have representatives who talk about love and fierce compassion. That's what we need. And then they have to do it. So, if we can do something through the legislature to support communities developing truth and reconciliation commissions or truth and reconciliation, discussion groups, I think that that's what we need to do, because the reckoning that we have right now is not sustainable. It is not.
I mean, I can't even begin to respond to what you're saying. There is a little background. Do you have it on your phone or anywhere? Because I hear my echo.
Wait, say that one more time.
I hear like an echo. I'm not sure if you have me on. But all the issues that you discussed are very important and dear to my, not just my heart, but I'm sure to everyone listening to us right now. And there's There's a lot of people listening. Thank you for joining us and commenting. You know, Peter is a very well-educated person and passionate, and I am really hopeful that everyone out there can see and hear his message and what he has to offer. And you definitely have a lot to offer, not just experience, knowledge, and everything in between. And I know we took long time just talking about systemic racism and talking about police reform. And there is a huge difference before we move on. Racial justice and injustices and inequality, it's a huge issue. And when we talk about police reform, that's not like we have a lot of people from the opposite side talking about, oh, they are going to, defund the police, don't understand what that means. We're talking about, we're not talking about getting rid of the police, but getting rid of militarizing the police and reforming it, getting resources, getting social services, getting mental health help for the people who need it, and train the police to act. And it's just not protecting them; it protect us. And I know we took a lot of time talking about this, but this is a really important issue, and I am glad you brought that to the spotlight and in an area that they might not face this, but it is good to understand what other are going through, and
Right.
this is very important. But
Thank you.
we talk about the environment and infrastructure in the area, briefly, and that's the main issue in all the rural area. We had candidate before who got their internet interrupted during the show many times, and I thought that was a good example that they were like, oh, we're sorry. I said, no, that's a good example for everyone listening out there to know there is an actual problem. How are we expecting businesses to go in that area? How are we expecting people to get to know life beyond their area if they cannot even communicate through internet? Right?
Oh yeah. Well, so early on in my campaign, when I was really trying to get things going, I hosted a panel on rural broadband with a gentleman from Mifflin County,
Mhm.
and he's worked in the telecom industry for about 30 years, and then also a gentleman named Sasha Meinrath,
Mhm.
who works at the X Lab at Penn State and has given testimony and written reports for state, national, and international governance bodies. And what I learned is that advancing broadband across rural Pennsylvania is not easy, and there are lots of technical and fiscal and even sort of legal issues with it, but that the state legislature and to some extent the governors over the last 10 years
Mhm.
just haven't been taking this seriously and doing what they need to do, and that the economic opportunity cost to the average Pennsylvania family is $1,000.
Yeah.
So, and that's a conservative estimate. So if you look at that and you put that across the state, if we have about 3.5 people per family in Pennsylvania, you're looking at something like $3 to $4 billion in lost economic activity because families are unable to connect to the internet. And it's exacerbated in rural Pennsylvania, in the what they call the T, between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and then going out. And you have these places. State College has very good internet. I believe Erie has very good internet. But this is a profound issue. In COVID-19, when our kids had to go home from school, just put it front and center. So the State College Area School District, which is one of the 4 school districts in the 171st, was able to rapidly get hotspots and laptops to almost every family, including families who had immigrated from Guatemala who speak Quechua. All right. And the internet generally, broadband here, was good enough that they could do that. In the Bellefonte School District, Penns Valley, and Mifflin school districts, that was not an option. So they couldn't require students to be in school. And so that kind of drag on kids' learning is really quite profound. And then you look at access to markets or the broadband needs of, say, factory farms in Mifflin County, or telehealth services as they're done today. It's a real issue, and we have an aging population in Pennsylvania. We have other kind of infrastructure issues, but yeah, broadband, it's become almost a cliche now. It is the new electrification. It is the new, sanitary sewer system. It just is.
Yeah. And talking about with aging population, that will perfectly take us to the next area that you discussed, which is healthcare. What is your plan for the area when you get it, not if?
Yeah. No. Well, so there are certain things that the legislature can try to do around, say, prescription drugs, or a Medicaid expansion. I think is, we'll see what happens with the Affordable Care Act because of, the just frankly bizarre attacks from the GOP, who I cannot help but note that the ACA is so much like Romney Care that was passed in Massachusetts, by Mitt Romney. And, it's almost this like knee-jerk hatred.
Yeah.
And they have no plan. So anyway, all things considered, I support a Medicaid expansion. Moreover, this district has, as I said, it's fairly quite rural. And if you looked at the town, there's a magazine, Township News, and a story from early in 2020 or late in 2019 was about rural emergency medical services, rural EMS. And the poster EMS that they included was the Penns Valley EMS, whose building is 20 miles that way in my district. And so the legislature is pulling funding away from them. And this year, my opponent voted that the state shouldn't fund training for people who volunteer in EMS.
Oh, wow.
So just I don't know how many folks who are listening where you are kind of tuned into rural Pennsylvania. This district is really, really big, really sizable. Not quite as big as some of the other rural districts, but it's pretty big. And it doesn't have a lot of people in some of these townships. And so Arma Township must be close to 90 square miles, and it has, a couple thousand people living in it. Emergency medical services, getting to them, whether it's fire or ambulance, it can really take some time. They don't have a big tax base because there's just not a lot of money. It's quite agricultural, and it's sort of traditional small town PA.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so they have to have another bake sale. They got to have another hoagie sale. They got to have another, whatever raffle to raise money. And then what are they going to do? Are they going to buy new equipment, repair equipment, or do training? What are you going to do? And this is it's just unconscionable that my opponent, the House Majority Leader, Carrie Benninghoff, and, this gang of miscreants is not supporting the people who support us when we need it the most. And we're not talking about the police. We're talking about fire and ambulance services.
Emergency services.
Emergency services. What is wrong with you? And there's a totally messed up funding model with it. Anyway, so you're just like throwing insult onto the injury.
Yeah. and to answer your question, what is wrong with them, I'll say everything. Because for us to get to this point and talk about, this is the United States we're talking about. And it's so funny. I had a discussion earlier with a friend of mine, and she said, we used to hear these issues in third world countries. And, she said, because I talk about Sudan a lot and how corrupt and dictatorship and all of that. But now for me, yeah, I'm a white American, lived all my life here. And for me to feel that I am living a problem that only I heard about in the third world country, this is scary. And honestly, for everyone listening out there, you know, you should do your own research. You should,
Well,
at this point, you should know, right?
if I can,
Yeah.
so the Pennsylvania legislature, both both of the chambers are they're controlled by the GOP right now, and they're controlled by the GOP because of gerrymandering. And gerrymandering is fundamentally a corrupt act. It is choosing your voters instead of your voters choosing you by how you write the map. And when you do that, you consolidate power. And then what happens is that all the dark money groups are like, aha, look at everything we can get away with. And Jay Corman, who's the Senate Majority Leader, also from Center County, also my state senator, I'd never vote for that man ever. And I've talked with him in his office a number of times, He and Kerry, as the majority leaders, man, they are addicted to raw power. And they, speaking of what your friend told you, they won't pass a gift ban. They won't do it.
Yeah.
Right? They're just flush with corruption. And Pennsylvania has been repeatedly cited by good governance groups, the legislature, as just being rife with corruption. We don't have good campaign finance laws. We have terrible gift laws to transparency. Like the Sunshine Law doesn't apply to the legislature for much of its activities. So, a legislator can go around and do all sorts of things, and you have no recourse under the law to know who they're talking to and how. And I'll tell you right now, I will fight for increased transparency 100%. Every legislator should worry that anything that they write in their email or anything else through their public communication channel, that it should be able to appear on the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Penn Capital Star, Pittsburgh Post Gazette, New York Times, Washington Post, whatever. They should worry about that every day. Mm-hmm. And not just to be in fear, but so that they know, so that citizens can trust, but verify. Right now, we can't trust because we can't verify. Mm-hmm. And my opponent is an architect of this system. And I will just refashion the foundation if I, when I win.
Yeah, when you win, not if, because we are hopeful, and I always say that I trust the people in Pennsylvania to just wake up and see there's facts and see the lies. And just for your district alone, people should be able to see that for the past 2 years or say 12 years, what this person have done to our area.
Yeah, 24.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that shouldn't be allowed to begin with.
It's crazy.
But, you guys read about Peter, get to know what he stands for. And all the information is out there in the open, in his website, in his Facebook page. Contact his campaign. There's 26 days left.
Yeah. So you had brought up a little bit about the environment. And so this is the thing I think that people know me for, and I would be remiss if I didn't just get to talk about climate change in Pennsylvania. And I think what people should understand about Pennsylvania's past and its future. So Pennsylvania is unique among the states in the US,
Mhm.
in that we have a constitutional right to clean air and water. Under Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, you have a right to clean air and water and the aesthetic and cultural benefits of the natural world of Pennsylvania. And that the government is therefore is tasked constitutionally with being the good steward of nature. It's amazing. Now, the legislature surely has not lived up to that. But over my time in local government, and certainly before, this is kind of what I've worked on and really put my heart and soul into. I was part of the community groups that organized 2 community and environmental bills of rights that passed by popular referenda in Ferguson Township and State College Borough in 2011 and 2012. Then as a township supervisor, I was able to take the will of Article 1, Section 27 and that Community and Environmental Bill of Rights to move forward on passing what was in 2017 one of the most aggressive and forward-looking pieces of climate action legislation at the local level in the Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. Resolution 2017-14, people can read about it if they want to. But what that initiated was a regional climate action planning process where I've been intimately involved with it. And it's because of not just the constitutional reason and my own love of the natural world. I'm a mountain biker, and my dad used to take me to chop wood when I was a little kid. We'd all get in the truck with his mauls and axes and the chainsaw and all that, and I'd go tromp around, a little 5-6-year-old, thinking that he's like a big man, hanging out with guys with their axes, and then they've got to load the wood in the truck, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But Pennsylvania is in an incredible position. We are the nation's second biggest electricity exporter. And we are the nation's, I believe, 4th or 5th largest electricity producer and source of greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah. And we account for about 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So it is incumbent on us to move from our fossil fuel past, and I'm not attacking anybody who works in that industry, but we know that we have to move. And I've worked in government, but then also through my position at Penn State, I was part of the team that put together the state's largest solar power project. And we worked with the Nature Conservancy, Lightsource BP. We've worked with Ernst Seed, which is a seed company, to support habitat, pollinators, and even sheep grazing on farms that are remaining viable farms in Franklin County, Pennsylvania. We worked with the township supervisors. I mean, the sort of whole thing. So it's really a comprehensive view that isn't just about the environment. It's fundamentally about the dignity and prosperity of Pennsylvanians living on and with, the creation, whether, whatever faith you are, yeah. Or, maybe you're a non-believing person, your faith does call you to responsibility for the other creatures of the world, yeah. And to your brothers and sisters. We are our brothers and sisters keepers. And that includes the honeybee. Yeah. The honeybee who is in Scripture, by the way. Honey is all through Scripture. And for a reason. It tastes good. It comes from, this beautiful, incredibly intricate dance that, the Creator has given us. And we can work with it and be smarter and more caring, or we can do what's been done, which wasn't intentionally evil or something like that. But we've gotten to the point now where we know that things need to be different, and that calls on us to do incredible, wonderful things together, right? And care for each other. I don't know. I get very excited about this, obviously. I mean,
I'm really excited,
Yeah.
talking to you. You are a very resourceful person, and I'm sure you cringe every time you hear, as an educator and as someone who believes in science and environment, global warming. Every time I hear someone talking about, oh, this is a hoax. There is no global warming. Science is not real. This is so sad, and I hope people will wake up.
so just really quickly on that, one of the things that we're seeing happen in the American public, though, is that those people, while they're still desperately grabbing on to whatever power they have less and less actual clout. Very few people are outright deniers of climate change anymore.
Yeah.
And close to 70% of people in Center County, through the Yale Climate Change Project, have reported that they think that, well, one, climate change is real.
Yeah.
Most of them think that it's caused by people, and that the government needs to do something about it. The government.
I am glad to hear that. And with that note, the COVID are still in your district. People are still thinking it is not real, or people are taking it serious.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing about the district. We have the zip codes in Pennsylvania over the last month or so with the highest level of COVID outbreak because of Penn State University.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the people immediately around the university, they don't think it's a joke. They don't want to get sick. The State College Area School District went full remote for a few weeks because of the worry that students were going to be vectors into the community and that it would spread. And it's pretty
Ooh. I think we lost Peter until he comes back. We lost him for a minute. Yeah. Welcome back.
Whoa, there you go.
We lost him.
So that's okay.
So people are immediately
right around University Park and Penn State University. We don't think it's a hoax. There may be people in other parts of the district, especially the very rural parts of the district, where the disease just really isn't present. There just isn't a lot of movement, right? People aren't like going in and out of really heavily populated areas. So it really depends on where you live. And so, I supported the governor's disaster declaration. I continue to support it. But the difficulty in handling COVID-19, I mean, it's just very different in Millheim, which is a place you've never heard of, right? Or Milroy or Belleville, right? Than it is in State College and around Penn State University. And so people who are frustrated that they call it a hoax is obviously wrong. But I understand their frustration because they don't see it in their daily lives the way that other people do, And
it's just like racism and any other virus issues that we don't have to actually see to believe that it's a problem and it's affecting so many people out there. And Peter, I really want people to know your name and know everything you stand for. If you have the chance to just give a very concentrated 10 minutes, and I know we're going to go back and talk about the issue, because talking to you, I don't even feel the time. and it is very inspiring. And I truly hope everyone listening to us, see and hear the sincerity and know about you, and have the, just give us 1 minute, 2 minutes to go look in his website and learn about him. And for everyone that live in the district, give him a chance, elect him, see what he's going to do to the area. And if he didn't do a good job, you have another, in 2 years, you can go vote him out or vote him back again to finish what he started. And for everyone that does not live in the area, if you know someone that live in that area, encourage them to learn about Peter and vote for him. And you have other ways to share, to donate. And we're going to give you a chance to talk about how people can help you.
Mm-hmm.
But if I come in, like there's few people that just joined us. If someone just came in here and wanted to know everything in 10 and I know it's a lot, but we want to give them a higher dose of Peter,
Okay.
a big buck,
Sure,
and
sure.
they know about you.
Yeah. So do you want the stump speech?
I want you to talk to us about who you are and
Sure.
and what your campaign stands for, and why should we vote for you and not
Yeah.
your opponent.
Yeah, great. So I'm running because I love my home. I have lived 40 of my 44 years here in central Pennsylvania. And at the end of the day, I believe that everybody deserves a fair shot at a bright future. Over the last 15 or so years, I have dedicated my life to volunteering, working in education, both in higher education and in a boys' boarding school, through local nonprofits like the Penns Valley Conservation Association, or a statewide higher education nonprofit, the Pennsylvania Environmental Resource Consortium, in local and regional government, whether that's on the Watershed Commission, my Township Board of Supervisors, or chairing an intergovernmental solar working group. I work very hard. I'm incredibly committed to issues, and I also just really like working with people, hearing from them, listening to what it is that they need, and trying to find a way for them to have the issue solved, or at least managed better. So when it comes to the issues that are before us right now, the United States and Pennsylvania are fundamentally suffering from a few different diseases, but that end up being connected. So the most obvious one right now is COVID-19. And going back to the George W. Bush administration, he said almost exactly 13 years ago that we needed to look at not if a pandemic was going to hit, but when, and said that we needed to be prepared. And the fact of the matter is that we were not prepared, and we weren't prepared in a number of ways. Our departments of health have been hit, including the Pennsylvania Department of Health. My opponent, Carrie Benninghoff, the House Majority Leader, has voted 4 times in the last 10 years to cut $106 million from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. He's also then disabled rural infrastructure, including health infrastructure like emergency medical services, which I talked about earlier, refusing to help those people who help us when we need it the most. Refusing to advance rural broadband, which impacts telehealth, access to markets, and obviously kids being in school. So COVID-19 is just sort of showing these already existing inequalities. And for folks in Philadelphia, especially poor and minority communities, you're overwhelmingly being impacted by COVID-19 because of the nature of employment, the nature of housing, transportation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And had we had better health and school, etc., infrastructure set up where we are working, where the government is investing in its people.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't taking stuff away from people. It's crafting it so that people, everybody gets a fair shot at a bright future. Our schools in Pennsylvania are fundamentally flawed.
Mm-hmm.
We have one of the 10 most unequal school systems. I believe we're 5th or 6th in inequality. That is not where we want to be.
Wow.
Because of the combination of funding and entitlements and things like that. But one of the biggest plagues on this is the charter school system, where we have a charter school system, which in many cases, I know people who work in charter schools, and I don't mean to be like, and some of them are fine people or something like that. No, they are. And some of the schools are great. They really are. But the system as a whole lacks accountability, and we are shoveling money that could go into special needs, that has to go into special needs, into for-profit black boxes. And so in central Pennsylvania, we actually had the worst performing charter school in the Commonwealth, ranked 732 out of 732. It took the power and investigation and legal might of the State College Area School District, which is in the top 10 or 15% of school districts in Pennsylvania, to revoke the charter. That should not be the case.
Yeah.
We need the system to be changed so that we're not shoveling tens of millions of dollars that should be going towards special needs or populations or communities that need that money more.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to address that. And finally, I'll just say, we also suffer from the incredible disease of racism in Pennsylvania. 401 years of systematic disenfranchisement. And that is legal. It has been legal. And I would encourage everybody to read this book, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. Okay? And where it talks, he does exhaustive research on the way that we have systematically kept property out of the hands of Black Americans, and it's been legal.
Mm-hmm.
Supported by the Federal Housing Administration for decades and decades and decades and decades, in plain sight. And that has ripple effects in policing and all sorts of things. So there's more that we have to do there. And the fourth disease that I'll mention is the disease of climate change. Right? George W. Bush said it. We are addicted to fossil fuels. And we need to move past fossil fuels. Thank the people who worked in coal, who worked in gas, who worked in oil, and transition that economy to a clean, renewable energy economy, energy efficiency, electric transportation. And then also we have an incredible forest and agricultural sector where that can actually be sinks for carbon dioxide. And we can do better to support farmers. And finally, the last disease is the disease of disinformation. And, I read global risk reports. It's something I have to do for work, but it's also kind of a little bit of a morbid hobby.
Mm-hmm.
The combination of artificial intelligence, the rise of a barely regulated internet, and partisan fury is pumping disinformation and anger into the American citizenry. So I'm glad that people are here with me now today, or if they watch it later. They need to talk to their neighbors. And we need to start telling the truth and listening to one another so that we rebuild strong communities, because that is at the end of the day how we are healthy. So when we think about healthcare, we need to prevent things like an epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah.
That the World Health Organization says will be one of the globe's leading killers by 2030.
Yeah.
And as connected as we are through these marvelous machines, we are becoming disconnected from our neighbors.
Yeah.
So what a state rep like me needs to do is help communities get back together and talk, to build perspective in community and across community. At the end of the day, that's how we make ourselves better, and we can become more compassionate, and we can make sure that we're each working for everybody to get that fair shot at a bright future, not the have and have not system that's been set up by dark money and bad faith actors. This is how we make a better commonwealth that works for the common person's common good, right? That's really what we need.
I don't know how you.
That's Peter Buck. That's Peter Buck for you.
I want a Peter Buck. You want to have a Peter Buck on your side or on your district, please find someone. We need to clone you. We need to have more of you. I don't know about everyone listening out there, but I do need a Peter Buck in my life, and I do need him to be representative. And I'm not just saying that. You are an amazing human being, and we do need you. We need you, truly, to make a difference for our future, for our kids' future.
I'm going to have a John Boehner crying moment here.
In your district, I'm going to move there so I can elect you. But if you don't live in his district, do something.
Can I say something about that, Hagir? So in I believe it was in 2017, I was the regional representative to my Council of Governments who stood up and said, we need to pass a resolution on equity and inclusion that includes immigrants.
Yeah.
And when we talked about that, there was some, pushback, from people who they would sort of dog whistle their reasons. I said, look, the people who are coming to the United States of America, they're coming here because they believe in the promise of a country that says that we will take your tired, your poor.
Yes.
Because they're coming here so that they can become part of the vibrant, loving community of a great nation that is great when it is good. That's what we need. And so, the xenophobia and the fear is itself the issue. It is not the recognition of the other. It is not, like our faiths tell us that we should open our door and ask you in for dinner.
Sure.
That's what we need to be doing, right?
People are stepping away from those values.
But not all of them are.
Yeah.
They're not. And, I think that I haven't talked about the
Peter.
Well, but and also a person like, we haven't talked about the top of the ticket. And I know we should probably wrap up here, but
no, we shouldn't.
Joe Biden is that kind of person who says, let's figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Like that, the division, when you turn your back on your neighbor, you hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And I know, God, I've gotten in how many arguments with how many people over the years. And even the person who I have struggled with most in my life and have just, oh gosh, so hard. Sometimes I'm like, oh, they are so, ooh.
Yeah.
I still went back. And sometimes you have to say, okay, we don't do this together and we only do this.
Yeah.
But if I say, I will never do anything with you ever again, what have I done to myself?
Yeah.
And I'm not an angel. You can talk to anybody. It's just not true. I'm a pain. But at the end of, I like to believe I can make good trouble. Yeah.
But we're all gonna have those kind of people in our life, and we cannot give up on humanity. We cannot give up on human being. You just have to find, and we're defensive. You said something at the beginning before we started, and I forgot what was it, but it is falling, like we are all human, and you just have to find the right buttons, and we are defensive. A lot of people, if you come to me and accuse me of something, it's just about the way you approach people. And I think, what you just said here, you're not giving up on someone who is who held different values. If you can make a difference.
Yeah. Well, and so my opponent, Kerry Benninghoff, I'm very hard on him, obviously.
Oh,
You
go
know,
for
no, and I do believe that at the end of the day, he has been corrupted by a system that he has been part of he's been one of its architects.
it.
And, but this is what I also know about Kerry. Kerry has shown up to 850 Eagle Scout ceremonies.
Mhm.
That's a lot. And it isn't because, oh, I'm just going to show up and be that. It's because it is important to him to support what he venerates as a great American institution, the Scouts. Kerry has also, when, say Brown Township, had, sort of this issue on the table, their township manager or the chair of their board called Kerry's office in Harrisburg and said, can he show up at tonight's meeting? Kerry got in his truck and drove the 80 minutes to Brown Township to go to their municipal meeting and listen. Now, he may not have been able to do a whole lot, certainly in the meeting, but, Kerry is a person who will sometimes show up that way. If you had a flat tire on the side of the road, he'd fix it. He's not he is my opponent. He is not my enemy.
And that's a huge difference between you and anybody, running now. And it's saddened me to see that we cannot work together. A lot of people that, treat this as either R or D. We are voting for people. We're going to find the right representative. You might, you don't have to be my enemy, but I'm running against you because you haven't done anything to my area. And I
Yeah.
am against your value. I'm against, everything that you stand for. You have some good things, but it's not doing good for our community. And that you're running.
Yeah. So actually, Kerry just announced today that a bill that he had sponsored, House Bill 1984, had passed. It's going to, I guess, pass out of the Senate, or it has been voted. The Senate is waiting the governor's signature, which is to protect victims of rape and their children from, parental custody claims by the assailant, right? This is great. This is very good, right? So, I'm happy to celebrate the victories that he has that are good. It's also true that he is the majority leader of an absolutely gerrymandered fake majority. And I will call it a fake majority. In 2018, people, 55% of voters in Pennsylvania voted for Democrats. 45% voted for Republicans. And yet magically, we have a 109 to 93, there's an empty seat, majority Republican. No, that should be flipped.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That only happens by cheating. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For all the good things I just said about Kerry, he's a cheater.
Yeah.
He is a cheater. And
what those people for the wrongdoing, and we can't this is not the time to stand and say, oh, they might have this good. No, we're going to go hard, and we're going to make sure that we flip the seats, because the Hillary won by the majority, but our electoral college said differently, and that's why we end up with Trump. In the same way, I said that before, that power create more power, and they get more seats. Now they have the majority. Now they can change rules, laws, the gerrymandering, and then it's going to just multiply.
Well, and the attempt to gerrymander the Supreme Court. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, it's almost like these guys are politician villains in a B grade movie.
Yeah,
But the
exactly.
thing is that
That's exactly
it's,
what it is.
but it's real. That's the thing. You're like, wow, this is actually
And I
happening here.
want to wake up, but you can't because this is reality.
Oh gosh, and I'm like,
You can
okay,
only change it by voting.
you know, and that is the thing. At the end of the, I mean, there's everything that happens between the election days that people can and should do, including running themselves. Run for your borough council, run for your school board, get on your planning commission. You know, whether that's at the county level or in your at your municipal level, do those kinds of things and cultivate leadership.
Yeah.
Right, that needs to happen.
And you can't do that if you stand there and just yell at scream at the darkness. Just find a candle. It's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. And that's an old Chinese verb. I don't know who said that, but that will be the same when it comes to voting now and electing the right officials, like everyone in your area. By electing you, they are actually affecting the whole state. You are going to be a voice. We are going to stop a major issue from happening. And one of your campaign is about defending our democracy, and it's so sad that we have to talk about this in 2020 in the world first country. We are the greatest country, and like you said earlier, I didn't want it to go without saying something, that people, refugee, immigrant people come here because they can see themselves getting a second life, a second chance in life, just like me. I got a second chance in life, and I am planning to use it to do something. I'm not planning to die or go out of this world without making a difference. And everyone listening to us now, you can make a difference.
Well, and like I think about my friend Prasenjit Mitra, who actually he succeeded me on the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors. I reached out to him to run for the seat. I had heard from someone, he's interested in running, and he is he's an immigrant to the United States from India. And he had gone to university in India and then came to the United States, completed his education here, and works at Penn State. And he feels very passionately. I said, Prasenjit, run. And I talked to him a few times, and he occupies that seat. And his perspective is a perspective that comes from being a person who came to this country because of the promise of the country.
Yeah.
Right? And he is one of their best. He is a fine, good man. He's raising a wonderful daughter, and he makes our nation better. He makes Pennsylvania better. He makes Ferguson Township, this rural municipality, this rural suburban municipality in the middle of Pennsylvania,
and that's
a better place.
That we're looking for. You are that leader that I wanted to be in every district, in every state. Someone who support other, lift other up, and wanted people to do better. Because if we all succeed and if we all do better for our community and have the right reason to run, we will have a great, not just district, we will have a great state and states, 50 states. And that's what we want. We want to be able to help someone, and it doesn't matter what is their political affiliation, what is their color, race, ethnicity, gender, their sexual orientation. That doesn't matter. All matter is they are human that live in here, right there in my area. And it doesn't have to be just in the United States, but we can start with the smaller level and help the world. And just is so sad that the whole world is looking at us. they used to look at us for not just wisdom. They look at us as a country that, lead by example. And yeah, we have our flaws, and no one can say racism that doesn't exist, or it just came with Donald Trump. No, it's always there. But we had a law, we had rules, regulation, we had a system that made it illegal to call someone names, to basically deny someone a job or education because of their race. Or we had the system going on, and that's all like going away. But we need a leader like you. We need a leader like Peter to, sadly bring us back to the point where we were the greatest country in the world.
So,
and declining.
So there are one of the things that I really wish had happened with the national and state GOP was after the 2012 election, right? There's this famous document, the post-mortem document that was written, in which the people who wrote it about what's happened with the GOP, they said that we need to become a more culturally, racially, diverse party.
Yeah.
And that conservative principles do not preclude a multiracial, truly demographically diverse party. And there are going to be policy implications in this, of course. But if we are going to be a viable national party, I'll put in there, in a democratic republic, then there are things that we're going to have to do. And, I look at, people say, like Michael Steele, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee, or even, Tom Ridge, the former governor of Pennsylvania. These are not people with whom I have a whole lot of, like, a huge policy overlap, but there's enough there, and also, I think, a genuine acknowledgement of the dignity of worth of all people, really, that if that were the Republican Party now, that would be so much better for the country, the world, than the one that we have, which is built fundamentally around a politics of grievance, and that isn't advancing a platform that really works for people. It is the outpost of dark money and resentment. And that is just, it's sad.
Yeah.
And when it grips the nation as it's gripping it now, it's like a fire in the country, and it's just looking for more things to burn. I had the great opportunity 3 times to talk with former South Carolina Representative Bob Inglis, who is part of he does a lot of work on climate change, but he is a rock-ribbed, red, pro-life, gun rights, Christian conservative. One of whose heroes is John Lewis, and who acknowledges the reality of climate change, and I think woke up in 2012 going, what is happening to my party?
Yeah.
There's so much resentment. Actually, in 2010. It was in 2010. And that's too bad. It's bad for that party, and it's bad for the country. And it's being then just endlessly dumped on Americans through media like Fox News.
Yeah. And Jarvis just said, and I agree with you, Jarvis. He said there is no Republican Party. It is Trump versus Democratic Party, and it is the sad truth. It's so sad. The party that brought some great leaders that I might disagree with them, but I respected that they respect the law, the Constitution, and that they might not do everything that I believe in, but at least they're not going to harm me. They're not a narcissist, liars, etc. So to me, it was a shock that Trump was supported by the Republican in 2016, and it's a bigger shock to me that they supported him again now in 2020. So to me, it's just a matter of, okay, finding someone that who is going to win or create create hate and division, and bring issues that we did not know it was there, it was underneath the surface, like beneath the surface. But it is the time is flying, and talking to you, I don't even feel like I wanted this to stop. That's how great of a, not just a spokesperson, but great of a person who has a ton of knowledge and values and issues that does matter to him, and he's going to change and make a difference once he gets elected.
Yeah.
When he gets elected, not if. And we want all of you to help with that. So how people can help you before we end, and I am just inviting you to come back again, because there's so many issues that we love to talk about, and we don't have time until the election, but when you win and you get settled, we would love to talk again.
Well,
how people can help you.
I would be honored to come back, Hagir. I appreciate your commitment. I appreciate your analyses and your concern for all of the people of Pennsylvania and the nation. I welcome people's help. A campaign is something that requires volunteers and money.
Yeah.
So if people are willing to make phone calls for my campaign into this district, that would be fantastic. I can get you set up with a phone banking list, and you can help us call people in Penns Valley and across this district to make sure that we win. When you hear us, hear Hagir and me today, you can share this broadcast out on your social media. You can also go to my website, buck4pa.com, and share things from that website, whether that's recent news or newsletters or my platform. And of course, if you are willing to donate, $25, $50, $100, $250 to my campaign, that would be wonderful. I can tell you that, my campaign is a grassroots funded campaign. We've raised, I think now over $60,000 from this, pretty rural district, from somewhere between 650 and 700 individual donors, which is just wonderful. And we also have the donated in-kind services of a video production company and a composer to make ads. But that's the only real kind of in-kind that we have. So reaching voters through mail, through radio, through online platforms, that takes money, and a little bit of it goes to pay for my campaign manager, Josh, who is a wonderful, wonderful young man who works so hard and coordinates our volunteers. So if you can donate $25, $50, $100, $250, I would be honored. And you can do that at buck4pa.com, buckforpa.com, and click on the donate button. And if you're interested in volunteering, you can sign up under the Take Action button there, and we'd be happy to have you. And Hagir, I would be honored to come back on your show.
Oh, we will definitely have you, because you are a ton of knowledge. You have a ton of knowledge, and you are passionate and true about a lot of issues that it's dear to my heart, and I'm sure it's dear to everyone listening to us right now. And if you just joined us, once we finish this show, you can go back and listen to it from the beginning. I will also make small videos from, which is the whole show. It's like everything that Peter said was important and
Well,
refreshing. And this is we're in 89 minutes now.
oh, I know, I know. I looked at some of the others. I was like, man, we're going over.
And going because and people are engaged, like they're listening. We have people that sat through this whole 89 minutes with us, and thank you all for listening. And like Peter said, share. Make sure you go to his Facebook page, which I will share, and I shared at the beginning of this video. Go to his website. This is not your traditional campaign, so any help that you can do. We have people that help us with texting, and they live in California. We have listeners from all over the United States. You can help. You don't have to live in the 171 district. You can help, and there's 26 days. If you didn't do anything yet, it is not too late. You can still donate to Peter, but go to but4pa.com, go to his website, and I'll share all that with you. And also share, make his name, like give people a chance to know his name and what he stands for. Share his campaign message with everyone that you know. Make phone calls, do anything and everything that you can in the next 26 days to turn PA blue and to ensure that someone like Peter, it will be an honor for me to have him as my representative. And I really hope everyone listen to us now will feel the same way. And I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank you, Peter, for being who you are. And I want to thank you for giving me the chance to get to know the beautiful human being you are and to give me time to just talk to you. It is an honor. Thank you much. And if you want to say last few words to everyone watching us,
Sure.
Before we end the show.
Sure. So I hope this doesn't come across as cheesy or something like that, but like I really need to thank my family. My son Sasha is extraordinarily important to me, and I decided to do this because one night I was sitting up with my wife, my wonderful wife Lexi, and I said I just think I need to do this, and she said, well, you should, and you enjoy it, and you're good at it, and people will respond to you. And my mother lives in Italy now. I don't get to see her. My sister lives in Oregon, but they have, these people are the people who have, and teachers and community members. I mean, there are people who have kind of made me who I am today. And I owe every single one of them who has inspired me, supported me, pushed me around, told me no, and made me learn a lesson. They're the people who make me who I am. And there are too many of them to name, but if they get to watch, I hope that they know that I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
And nothing cheesy about that, for us to know you're a good human, and thanking the people who made us who we are, the bad and good ones.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter, Mom. I personally want to thank her and thank your wife and your son for supporting you in doing this. Otherwise, we won't get the chance to know you and say, you know what, he's going to be the person that he will change the area, and he will make a huge difference. So thank you, Peter.
Thank you
for everything you're doing, and thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you on Monday. Good evening.
Good evening.